Tebow going on his own. He gets the try.
The Red 78.
We're both Munster people.
Carberry gets over the line. Try from Munster.
Nobody knows Munster rugby better.
Hello and welcome along. I'm Alan Quinlan and you're listening to episode 66 of the Red 78 here on the Rugby channel. And with me as always is my partner in crime, Niamh Briggs. How are you, Niamh?
Good, Quinny. How art thou?
Oh, grand, yeah. Belated happy Easter. Did you eat any Easter eggs or anything? No?
Not yet. No, didn't get a chance. Busy weekend. Yeah, look, hopefully we got one in our hotel rooms last night when we came in, so that's there.
If you beat Italy, you could celebrate later in the week. And Spurs had a poxy all win against Brighton as well. But anyway, you were happy. Lots of controversial decisions in that. So just tell me before we go on to talk about Munster, we'll have a chat about your rugby life at the minute. So the weekend, you got to walk over UL Bows. You're into the final.
Yeah, so we're playing Railway in the AIL Cup final on April 23rd. So it's been quite a long season, I think, and we're just got to keep pushing for the last couple of weeks, I think. We played Railway last weekend, got a bit of a thumping off them, so nothing like a good defeat to bring you back down to earth in terms of where we were going. But we've had a really good cup run since before that, so we're excited for that. A final, you never know what can happen on the day.
That's one to look forward to.
So and then obviously,
you're in camp.
And then straight into camp then. Yeah, on Sunday, we're obviously preparing for Italy this weekend. We fly out to Parma tomorrow evening. So we've it's been a weird one because we had a week's break between the French defeat and this camp. And
so you didn't meet up at all last week in a mini camp, no?
No, we didn't. We gave players a week off. I think it's important.
Side.
Yeah, I think for now and for this group, I think that was very important. We also have players that are working full time, and it gives them an opportunity to get back to work and stuff like that. So so it's been a bit of a weird one because you spend the whole week reviewing France and that performance and so much of it that we can get better on for quite quickly, and then you're previewing Italy as well. So we've had a really good couple of days. I feel like we said that against France as well. There was definitely moments of that performance in France that were way better than Wales, but I think defensively it's got to be there's a big onus on us this weekend. We left a lot of tackles slide, crazy amount against France, and we just can't do that. So it's been a big focus point for us this weekend. But there's a good energy in the group, and I think the mental break probably did us good in terms of that ability to not just be in the bubble for so long. I think that's been really, really important. So I think all systems go this weekend.
So Italy lost their first game 22-12 in Italy to France, which was only 10 points in that game. In round two, they were beaten 68-5 by Italy. So
by England,
by England. It's hard to kind of read too much into results, although they went close enough with France in the first one. Would that indicate that they're strong?
Oh, they are strong. So they've not lost a huge amount. They're obviously at the World Cup as well, so not a huge amount of players. They've definitely got cohesion. It's probably what we're probably lacking a small bit, and an understanding of how to play international test rugby. That's probably been the biggest thing for us. We look across the back line itself, and against France, you take out one player, I think, and everybody else under the age 22, 21. So it's just frightening. But they're learning on the international stage, which is difficult for them. But also, we've got to get better quickly. We've got to demand standards and expectations, and they're getting there. I think they're starting to understand what it is to train like an international player, to be on all the time. I think that's really important. So look, I think Italy are good. They like to move the ball, very similar to like Bennett on Treviso. They like to, they rarely kick it. They like to run from everywhere, but they're incredibly good at that, and they're quick and they like to offload a lot. So we've got to be really good defensively, and that's probably where we probably lacked a little bit of bite last weekend or the last game against France. So we've worked a lot of that over the last couple of days.
Is that a collective thing or is it an individual thing?
Both, I think. I think it's a collective thing in terms of trust and communication and understanding about, you know, the messages that you're getting from the inside or the outside are fact. But then individually, you know, you just can't miss 40 odd tackles in a game, in a club game, let alone an international game. So that's a really big work on for us. And we've done a lot of work in terms of the collective, in terms of understanding, in terms of being together so that, you know, we can dense it in, force them wide, and we're giving ourselves options. We just can't get broken through the middle like we did against France at times. And they'll live off that because they're quick and they're good. So, yeah, I think it's very difficult. You know, we talk about, like we've talked about Munster's defence in a bit, but very easy to get overawed by all the work that you feel like you have to do, especially coaching aspect. But I think if you could break it down into solitary little things. So we had 3 work-ons for Wales from Wales that I thought we did really well against France. And now we've got 3 new ones for this weekend. So I just think we can break into small parts like that and remain patient about, look, we know exactly where we are. Like, let's not, like, we're very realistic in terms of what we're trying to do. But we can actually 100% win this game this weekend. And I think we've got to go with that mindset.
Okay. Just finally, give us an idea what it's like to come into camp yesterday and what you did. Did you come together, have video session? Did you train? Did you just have meal and have a team meeting? What's it like to be an international rugby player for the Ireland women's team?
It's pretty full on, to be fair. I think they came in Monday morning. We had a brief kind of hello, how are you? We've got a fines committee, so there was somebody had to
Sunday morning, was it?
Or Monday. So we came in Sunday evening, and we met here Monday morning. And then you're looking at like meetings, lots of reviewing. So we had a unit's bit of reviews. And then we had a team review and a lot of work on our defence. Then we went outside or into the indoor pitch, which was brilliant because it was absolutely lashing. And we did a lot of work on our connections and our D. We did skills wheel in relation to our tackle tech and playing on top and tackling on top, which is really important for us. And then review that afterwards. Then the girls have recovery and stuff like that. Then today's the busiest day. So really, they're in right early. We do a unit split. Dennis Fogarty is our scrum coach, and he's like a picker-upper. So on Tuesdays, they do some sort of quiz in the morning, like for 10 minutes, like an icebreaker, where they get all giddy and get quick crack. And then we'll split straight into unit meeting, and review and preview what we're trying to do. And then out straight onto the pitch. So forwards will go to the gym, backs will go on the pitch. We have big units fit for 45, 50 minutes. We'll flip over, and then backs will go to the gym, forwards will go onto the pitch. Then they come up, they have they're having their lunch now, and then they'll meet together again as a team in relation to just go over our principles in relation to our defence, what we're looking to do. And then this afternoon, then our pitch session will be defence heavy. Right. And then yeah, so it's busy. It's busy tonight. Then same. A lot of meetings. A lot of excuse me. I remember when I was playing, it used to be meetings, pitches, and it was like really, really intense all the time. Now it's a case that when they get back to the hotel, they can total switch off time. So after dinner, it's their players' time. So they either do a movie night or a quiz or something like that. But it's players' time only.
And you travel when?
Separate.
When do you travel for the Saturday game? So the
tomorrow
game is 4:45 on Saturday.
Yeah, tomorrow evening we'll go. So we train tomorrow morning. It's our performance day and our high intensity session, and then we'll travel out tomorrow evening. Fly tomorrow evening, get in, and then they're off Thursday, and then they'll captains run Friday morning, off Friday afternoon, evening, and then into the game Saturday. The week flies, it flies.
It does, yeah. Well, listen, the very best of luck. Hopefully you can get a positive result and improve what you're trying to say you need to improve and get better. Yeah. Still a very young player, a young group of players. So the very best of luck with that. Okay, we'll move on with Munster. We've no game to obviously the main bulk of the podcast has to be on Munster. So but people are pretty conscious about what you're doing and what the Irish ladies are doing as well, and we wish you well. Munster, no game to review at the weekend. We went through the Sharks game last week. Lots of issues and worries around that performance, but not just that performance, probably the Glasgow one before and the Scarlets one before from a defensive point of view. Munster travelled to Munster travelled to South Africa yesterday, so they should be there up and running today. Whether they'll train or not, no, I'm not sure. They might go for a little run out, but they play the Stormers on Saturday, and then they're away they play the Sharks the following Saturday. Both games in South Africa. I put a tweet out yesterday asking, what do Munster fans expect? What do they think Munster need to do? And you can read out some of the reactions there.
Excuse me. Yeah. So we're just looking at the two games, obviously in your tweet, and Dave Carney said heading over for the two games. So glad we're taking a strong squad. Really looking forward to it. Granny Bab said the rosary beads will be out. Get your mum out there with the holy water. Did your mum used to have the holy water, Quinn?
She did, yeah. She still has it, and she's going as well. So maybe the holy water might work this time in South Africa.
Oh, fair play there. Richard Daly, 1 out of 2 should be within our reach as a bare minimum, but it's going to be a huge ask for sure. Carmel O'Connor, sort out our defence and we definitely will have a chance. John Toohey, the team looked exhausted during their last match. Hopefully the week break will have recharged the batteries. In my humble opinion, these games are coming too soon in terms of development. If we are to get any points, it will be against the Sharks. Our front row is a serious concern. Michael Desmond, I hope so, but it's a huge challenge. Start of the year, really coming back to haunt us. Haven't started well after the Six Nations either, though. Joe said, yes, we can, but a massive challenge. Need a bit of luck too. Any injuries in key positions picked up in the first game versus Stormers will make the game versus Sharks even more difficult. Cape Town should be cooler than Durban too, both evening games, which should help. Ollie Norton, problem is defence. They're scoring plenty of tries. You should be aiming to get 2 try bonus points. After that, try limit damage defensively and get a losing bonus point or even a win. 2 bonus points might just be enough. What do you think there in relation to? We obviously know it's going to be the spotlight's on their defence. Do you think that it's going to get to a stage where it's a case of, okay, look, we're still scoring loads of tries, so let's back the attack and let's really focus in on the defence over the next couple of weeks?
Well, if they defend better, they have a good chance of winning 1 or if not 2 of the games. It's obviously going to be difficult, very physical sides they're going to be playing against. If they play like they played against the Sharks in that second half, there's a couple of the tries that are very difficult to stop. The maul tries, that power that the Sharks had. But if you're turning the ball over and giving away penalties and giving them an opportunity to get entries into your 22, when it's going to be really hard. So I think their analysis of the game and the performance, and probably looking back over the last number of weeks, hopefully will make them better. I believe they can score tries. I think they've, the stats and the URC stats are really interesting because most passes in the league are who, do you think? Munster. So what kind of issues had they last year? Not passing the ball, not being evasive, not trying to get width. So after 16 games, Munster have the most passes in the league. It's not winning your matches, but it shows the change. Most carries in the league, Munster.
We're obviously dealing with huge. Then I'd ask you, we're obviously dealing with huge amounts of possession and territory.
Yeah, well, all the stats as I've given you all season have been very high.
Yeah, but how then are we leaking so much tries with starving teams' possession? Like, you'd imagine if we can continue to starve teams of possession and get our defensive stuff.
So
right.
I think for any of the listeners, I think for me, my mentality around the fundamentals that you need as a rugby team are set piece, defense, breakdown. They're the kind of things that if you're not good at, there's no point in being brilliant at attacking stuff. If you need those fundamentals better. So there's still a little bit of work in progress. There's some mitigation around them, physicality, all that kind of stuff helps hugely. Quality of player, power, that helps hugely. Munster have the most offloads in the league as well, 171. So that's not winning in matches. Most carries, most meters. Most carries, most passes, and most offloads. And they're still finding themselves in a position of potentially their season being over Saturday week. and not been in the playoffs or not been in Europe. I think the issues they've had in recently are defensively, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And that's the concern. I think that's the enthusiasm that's been created as regards the attack and the speed of movement and all that kind of stuff has been really good. But defensively, just recently they've been exposed. So they've got sometimes that is a mental thing as well, Niamh. You know yourself. It's an attitude thing, but it's also an organizational thing. So players shooting out of the line on their own. You have to get man and ball. If you don't, you're leaving a gap and space. They've got to be really, really careful because the Stormers' attack has been superb. They showed it last year and winning the URC. So I think they've got to be very mindful of that. I think it's something they would have addressed and looked at, and hopefully they can get it right. There's no guarantees because sometimes under pressure players make poor decisions. But the Munster group that go out on Saturday against the Stormers got to make good decisions defensively, or else they're going to be punished. You have some more tweets. Carry on, sure, and we'll go to...
Yeah, sorry. Jerry Maloney says he thinks that they'll struggle. South African teams out of Europe and at home, it's something to play for. Frailties of this team and years' bad management have been highlighted for a week across the front row. Leadership outside of Peter O'Mahony not there. Ben Healy, our best option at 10 at the moment, but won't start. Interesting. I know before I go on to these, I know that South African teams are at home, but they've also had to travel back from Europe this week, which takes its toll. Stephen Davies' squad have looked mentally and physically fatigued during the last two games. Hopefully the past week's rest will have freshened their minds and bodies. It's only 2 months ago they gave Toulouse a run for their money in Toulouse. Keep the faith.
Okay, just on that point,
Christopher Murphy.
Just on that point.
Yeah.
That is something that, if I was a player or you were a coach or a player in that group at the moment, you've got to circle the wagons and say, right, what's happened in the last couple of weeks has been poor. Let's look back at what we did against Toulouse, what we did away in Edinburgh, what we did away in Ulster, what we did against South Africa and Cork. When we were still even, underpowered a little bit as opposed to some of the physicality against the opposition. And how can we harness that and get it to make us tighter? And they've literally got to say, well, our season is over Saturday week. So if that doesn't ignite him a little bit to find some energy, and then the week off, yeah, for sure. For the Stormers and for the Sharks traveling at the weekend, well, it depends. It depends what their mentality and attitudes are like. But the problem we have is Stormers are on 61 points in second, Ulster on 59 points in third. The Stormers are not guaranteed a top two, which would give them home semis. You then have a home quarter and home semi. They're still fighting for that. So if they beat Munster, because I think Ulster will win the last two games. Ulster play Dragons at home and they play Edinburgh at home. So they have 2 home games, finishing with 2 home games. So I think Stormers realise in an ideal situation, Stormers would have been qualified, or else both of them would have won in Europe, Stormers and Sharks. So the Sharks are in 8th on 41 points. So they need to win their 2 games as well. So there's no excuses here. And I think that'll probably sharpen the minds a little bit as regards what Munster are going to come up against themselves. But the rest hopefully will have helped, and the ability to analyse and practice and train. Carry on.
Yeah, for sure. Last one from Christopher Murphy. Sharks and Stormers now have only the URC to play for. Not good for Munster. Stormers are going to go guns blazing, trying to hold on to their table position, and Sharks need to do as well to climb the table and secure a playoff spot. If the defence isn't shored up, no chance. See, here's the thing, right? I'm going to flip this around, just play a little bit devil's advocate. If Sharks and the Stormers have to go and have to win, well, so do Munster. So, therefore, I don't really buy for a second that, they're trying to cement their space and, they're out of Europe. Well, so are Munster. So, that should, if you're looking at this as a whole, then definitely...
absolutely, I know. I think
that's a leveler, for both teams.
I think the point that, I don't know if it's a good thing. If Stormers and the Sharks won at the weekend at the Champions Cup semi-finals, you kind of they'd have to balance their squads a little bit and look at which, how can we manage our side for both competitions. They're out now, so they have to go for the URC. If the Stormers are already qualified and in the position of Leinster and they're guaranteed a top 2, would they put out a weakened team? Maybe. But I think from a Munster point of view, the only thing they can control is themselves, and that is their attitude and the psychology they bring. And maybe it's a better thing that they know they're going to be coming up against a side no team goes out in sport to kind of lose and go, well, we're going to be a bit off it today. But sometimes mentally, if you don't have to win, if it's not do or die, it may tell, particularly when you get fatigued. But they're going to be playing 2 sides now that need to win their games, so it makes it even harder for them.
I watched the Stormers play last weekend against Exeter, and I thought that Exeter were really good. But I also thought that Stormers showed a lot of weaknesses in their game that Munster could definitely exploit. And I think Exeter and Munster play kind of similar.
What kind of weaknesses, Niamh?
So I think Exeter found ground a lot in terms of the kick, and it was actually really good in terms of
their kicking game.
Yeah, Willem says unbelievable in broken fields. He's like incredibly good player, ridiculously good feet. But when you turn him, he actually looks really, really uncomfortable. So there's loads of times, I think Joe Simmons explored that really good 10 for the Chiefs last weekend in terms of the ability to turn him. And then all of a sudden the line chase is really good. I thought their breakdown work was poor. Exeter got in for a lot of turnovers. But when Exeter looked to move the ball to width, Stormers really struggled in terms of generating that line speed. And I thought that, Munster play like that. They play to width a lot. They like to get into those channels. I also think for Munster too, to be fair, they've been quite potent in relation to that power zone in around the scoring zone. And I just think that Exeter were similar last weekend. So I do think if you're looking back at that game last weekend, I know it's difficult in terms of it was the away game and all that kind of stuff, but they definitely showed like chinks of weaknesses in terms of how to go about their game, and I do think that Munster can exploit that.
Okay, well, I'm sure the coaches will have looked at that stuff, and Dion Ferree, who's incredible at the breakdown, wasn't playing that game against Exeter, and I think he was a big loss to them. I'm not sure if he's going to be back for the weekend, but that'd be a boost for Munster if he wasn't playing, because he's probably one of the best in the world at the breakdown, at turnovers, poaching the ball. He's phenomenal. So we'll have to wait and see. There's no Evan Roos for him. He's been injured for a while. He's a brilliant player, the number 8 as well, but they still have a quality side. So just before we go on and look at the Stormers side, let's just look at some of the detail that where Munster need to be better. And the obvious one here from a lot of the fans tweeting and a lot of commentary after the last couple of weeks, the last 3 games, 6 tries conceded against the Scarlets, 5 against Glasgow and 7 against the Sharks. A lot of different types of tries, but when I looked back at these 18 tries conceded, Niamh, I see, okay, the maul tries are difficult at times. But one of the things that kind of jumped out to me was the physicality against Glasgow and the Sharks was very apparent. The scrum and the breakdown. So they're kind of 3 areas that the physical stuff, I think, is, sometimes you can't do anything about that physical size, but I mean being physical no matter what size.
We spoke about that last week. Yeah.
Okay. And then the scrum and the breakdown. So I think from a physical point of view, Munster just need an attitude around that and be really aggressive themselves continuously for 80 minutes. They've got to, no doubt about it. The scrum is a worry and a concern. You're coming up against, and again, depends what side they select, but the side they had at the weekend, the front row was Stephen Kitsoff, South African international, Joseph Dweba, South African international, and Franz Malherbe, arguably the best tight end in the world, scrummaging tight end. So that's an incredibly powerful front row that Munster are up against. They've got to try and find a way technically to be tighter and to at least win their own ball and get some sort of parity there, because the Stormers will fancy their chances at the scrum. And the breakdown, a big issue against the Sharks and Glasgow, and the second half against the Scarlets. So there's a lot of different scrums tries that are conceded, but a lot of going through Munster. So not around Munster, going through Munster. How, in your opinion, as a coach, and having watched this as well, can Munster solve this problem? Is it more, as you said, with the women you were talking about, is it the inside runners helping and supporting? Is it outside guys helping communication? Is it, because I've seen a lot of Munster players shooting out of the line, hoping and probably fancying themselves to make a man and ball tackle. How can they fix this problem of conceding 18 tries in 3 matches?
Yeah, look, I think it's kind of similar for us too. We're kind of dealing with the same thing in terms of conceding a big number of tries, yards, missed tackles. I think so the missed tackle thing is, it's very difficult to account for individual mistakes when you're looking to prepare a team. So you've got to make sure that everybody's on. You've got to make sure that everybody's connected enough so that if somebody does miss a tackle, the next person would jump in. Joe Smith told me before that when he talks about defence, he always spoke about it's the ability to not you yourself, but it's the ability to make your teammate look better. And how do you do that? You do it by connections, you do it by communication, you do it by the ability to stay on the inside, the ability to not go ahead of the ball on the outside. It's all those small little details, and if you can get all that small little detail and it's, you're going up together, that even though if somebody gets a handoff or a half a scrag, there's somebody else in there to finish that off. And look, it's very difficult when I find at times they're getting a lot of big mismatches because they're getting huge big forwards running down back throats, and that's a really difficult thing to do because that's sheer power, sheer weight. And so yeah, look, I think they've got to make sure that if they do one thing this weekend, it's in relation to their line integrity, so that even when they come up together, they're actually coming together. There's nobody giving the license to jump out. There's nobody given, and then in the work rate around it. So once the tackle's made, how many are we folding? How quickly can we fold? Can we just say we're leaving the breakdown alone for now and get bodies into the line? It all depends, but I think for now, I think the line integrity is huge. You spoke about it yourself there in relation to jumping out of the line and trying to make these big man and ball tackles. I think the centre partnership that comes from them, they've got to be really disciplined in terms of their line integrity this weekend.
Yeah, one of the things I think about all the tries and the concession of a lot of the tries, as I said, some of the ones from the mauls are difficult, but they're on the back of probably breakdown penalties as well. I think helping your defence, a massive part of that is the breakdown. And I don't think Munster are getting enough poaches in a game. They're not getting enough turnovers. Obviously, Peter O'Mahony is very strong at it. But if you count the number of turnovers that the rest of the team are getting, they're very minimal. John Hodnett is good at the breakdown. So I think for them this week, there has to be a big emphasis on how do we slow down the opposition ball, and then identify whether the breakdown is quick or not, or is it worth challenging it. But I think they need to be so much better. It's hard to kind of get that skill right and change it in round 17 of the URC, and you're coming towards the end of the season. But I think they need to really try and go after the breakdown of the Stormers and slow their ball down a little bit. Because obviously if the ball is slower, you can get numbers around the corner, you can get that integrity that you're talking about. And a lot of what we saw in the last while.
A lot of that to do though is well in relation to the tackle then. So it all kind of comes back to that.
Okay, so you're back to individual tackles, one-on-ones that people are falling off.
You can make,
and I think if the second half against Scarlets, hold your point. It's second half against Scarlets, a lot of quick breakdown and going through Munster. The Glasgow match, quick breakdown and then falling off tackles, and then the Sharks game was, I think, just throwing crazy passes and turning the ball over really killed them. So sorry for interrupting you there.
No, you're dead right. But I'm just saying, like, if you're talking about the breakdown, in order to make the breakdown slow, the tackle has to be a dominant tackle or neutral.
First up tackle.
If you're soaking stuff, we can never slow that down because we're always on the back foot. So it's the ability then. So how do you do that? So it's like just one vicious circle. How do you do that? you get line speed, you get line integrity, you get off the line, you make a big hit or a dominant hit or a neutral hit that stops them dead. Can look for a poacher, slow the ball down. We don't get it, we still have time to fool around. The issue is that when we get passive and we don't have big line speed and we're soaking tackles, then the opposition are on the front foot.
Yeah, well, that's a challenge for this week. Hopefully they can get that part of their game right. Let's just have a look at before we go on to the Stormers squad. Let's have a look at the Munster travelling squad. So I'm not going to call everyone out. There's no Niall Scannell, there's no Roman Salanoa. Niall Scannell's wife had a baby and Roman Salanoa has an injury. So Danny Sheehan from the under-20s has been called up. So the three hookers are Dermot Barnes, Scott Buckley and Danny Sheehan. And the areas that a lot of the fans are talking about is that front row. Jeremy Lockman is back, which is a big boost. I think it's brilliant to have him back. Your three tight heads that you have are Stephen Archer, Keenan Knox and Mark Donnelly. Are we going to be able to stop this Stormer scrum and at least get parity and win our own ball?
Yeah, look, I think they'll go with Archer for that first game. I think they'll have to, in terms of unless we don't know how Knox has been training, but he hasn't played a huge amount of game time over the last period of time. So, yeah, I do think that Munster it's going to be a case of trying to get the ball in now as quickly as possible to set up a platform for the attack, because just from a weight and a sheer size point of view, Munster were always going to be up against it. And when you're losing the likes of Salanoa, who's learning loads and getting better all the time, then we're putting ourselves under a little bit of pressure in terms of our strength and depth.
Yeah, they have some.
But it's a good opportunity. What a great opportunity for the likes of Mark Donnelly and stuff like that to go over there and experience that. So, yeah, look, I do think that when you look at the hooker position, Jim Barnes playing well. I think Scott Buckley's got a huge amount of talent, and so look, you'd like to back them in that, especially when they're around the loose. And if we can keep it away from set piece, then they're two really good players.
Yeah, so there's 18 forwards and 13 backs travelling the Munster squad yesterday. The team and squad will be announced Friday. Keith Earls, Jeremy Lockman. We mentioned Jeremy Lockman. Keith Earls, having him back is a boost. His leadership experience in there. Mark Donnelly, Edwin Adogbo and Jack Oliver have also been included. So
it's great. I don't think we can understate how important it is to have Keith Earls back there. I think
it is brilliant. And
his defensive work, his ability in the back three defensive work is really, really good. So look, I think that's really, really exciting. I think he needs game time. He needs to start pushing now to get back into that Irish squad in terms of the World Cup. And he's ridiculously talented, we all know that, but he's also really versatile, and his knowledge of the game, his knowledge of his defensive work, his work rate off the ball is exemplary. And I just think that loads of those young guys, look, we know that Shane Daly, Calvin Nash are having huge big seasons and really big breakout seasons, but having somebody like Keith Earls there is going to be huge for them and their development over there as well. Okay,
let's just have a look at the table again, just a bit of a recap of where Munster at, what they need, and we'll just finish on a quick look at the Stormer squad. So Munster are 5th on 48 points. The danger here, Niamh, is if they don't at least get a win. I don't think 2 losing bonus points. It might do it. A losing bonus point or 2 may keep them in the top 8. The problem, as we said, is Cardiff are possibly winning the Welsh Shield and unlikely to make the top 8. If they finish 9th or 10th, they're going to be in Europe next year, which I think would be a massive blow to Munster. The Sharks are in 8th. The Bulls, I think they have 2 home games. You'd fancy to win them. Connacht have Cardiff at home, and then they're away to Glasgow. You think they'll win against Connacht? Will win against Cardiff. It'll be tough against Glasgow. So potentially, there's so much to play for here, and I think it's stating the obvious that the damage kind of was done at the start of the season, losing 5 of the first 7 games. But let's see what happens. Just to have a look at the Stormer squad. and the way they've played this year. I think they've been brilliant. Obviously, they're the champions. The team that played against the Exeter at the weekend. And I think the danger here is that anyone gets lulled into a false sense of what the Sharks did over in Scarlets a few weeks ago and then played Munster a week after. So they were really poor in Wales in the travel, beaten by the Scarlets, a very good performance from Scarlets, and then walloped Munster. You could say it's a similar situation here. The Stormers were really poor in Exeter, well beaten, and now they go back home. So I don't think that they've been a very good side this year. They lost 3 games, drawn 2. I think they'll be frustrated with some of them. They lost in round 5 to Cardiff, round 11 to Glasgow, and around 12 to Ulster. So that trip just after Christmas there, the end of January, Glasgow and Ulster, they'll be disappointed with those 2 losses.
Yeah.
And the draw a couple of weeks ago with Leinster, I thought they were going to run away with that. And Leinster came back, and it was a brilliant, brilliant game. Some of the players they have, Damien Willems, you mentioned him, a brilliant player. Manny Libok is out half, Sanatla on the wing, incredibly powerful. Herschel Yankees, Kitsov, Dweba, Malherba, Marvin Ori, another international. Evan Roos has been out for a while. I love him as a player. So there's a lot of really good players in there. We're not going to spend long more on this because we've kind of highlighted the points we wanted. In essence, Munster have got to find a real energy about them at the weekend. It's going to be 10 degrees, probably cooler. It's an evening match. It's on in Cape Town. So we won't be looking at heat as an issue this time, or altitude. There's no altitude or the kind of humidity situation that they look like they really struggled with the last day. Can they beat this Stormer side? Would you be confident, or are you feeling confident about it?
I'm not really. It's not really confident. In fact, they can, because I think that they have shown in terms of their attack game how good they can be in terms of moving the ball and moving at a pace. From a defensive point of view, I would worry, and from a set piece point of view too. But in terms of that sheer physical power, it's very difficult to contend with. But yeah, look, I do think that they can definitely win. It's just, I don't know. It's a big ask. It's a big ask, and I hope that they go and prove me wrong.
Okay, well, we'll wait and see. It's a pivotal kind of. I think this is the one. This is the one that they possibly have the best chance in. The Sharks the week after is going to be incredibly hard again. But who knows? I think what we've seen the last few months and that period from November to the end of March, I think there was a lot of positive, really brilliant performances in there from Munster. And just we've seen a little bit of fatigue, a bit of mental fatigue, physical fatigue. Hopefully they're re-energized and they get their heads around this and find the performances that potentially can put them in a great position and put them. I think if they got into the quarterfinals and you qualified for Europe, it'd be a massive boost to them. I think they'd be very, very dangerous in the knockout stages if they got in there. But
yeah,
we'll have to wait. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I think just one other bit of news: Dan Goggin is finished his time with Munster. That was announced from last week, and obviously we'll hear a little bit more about what's going to happen later in the week, and if there's any other players coming in. Loads of fans looking for front row replacements, but that kind of money and finances doesn't grow on trees, and so anyway, I'm off on my travels to South Africa. For these 2 games.
Are you going with your mom?
Yeah, so the podcast will be next. The podcast next week will be from South Africa, and so I'll be up close and personal to have a look at what's going on.
Brilliant.
Fingers crossed, it's a positive trip, because look, I feel sorry for this group of players in some ways. I think, I just think they're working their socks off. We've seen a total.
I don't
change.
Feel a bit sorry for them in terms of where they are. I think that they are improved immeasurably from where they were this time last year.
No, that's what I mean. That's
so
my
much
point.
good. Yeah, I just don't think we feel sorry for them. I think they just go and
no, I just feel sorry for you know, the situation they find themselves in. I think they didn't have enough time. I think we've seen huge amount of change around the coaching, and I think they'll benefit from that going forward. And again, they've got to learn, but I just think that they have a lot to fix in their game, and I think they didn't have the time to do that this year. And if they miss out on Europe and on the playoffs, it'd be really disappointing. But as I said, it was a difficult start to the season for them. So hopefully they can you know, play really well and at least win one game at the weekend. Okay, that's episode 66 done. Thanks again, Niamh, and best of luck to you at the weekend and your travels to Italy. And fingers crossed, we'll be talking about 2 positive results next week.
Please God, thanks, Quinny. Don't forget the holy water.
I won't.
The Red 78 with Alan Quinlan and Niamh Briggs. Nobody knows Munster rugby better.
I'd like to think I know a lot.